In the 19th century, China was finally open to the world. And the church, being the church, knew there was a good opportunity to convert people, make Christians out of them, collect that money, and change the world. That's what the church always does, isn't it, Sharon? Collect that money. But anyway, the church went in with good intentions. And so it went in, and they found that when they got to China, there was a great famine. People were eating dirt in order to get minerals so that their bodies could be sustained. And the church, being the church, knew that if we feed them, they will come. I think that's where the coffee hour came from. But if we feed them, they will come. And so many Chinese flocked to the Christian churches because there was rice. And the good Christians fed the Chinese, and they were converted, became Christians, were baptized, and lived a life in the church. And the famine ended. Food became a little bit more plentiful, and the church attendance began to dwindle. Fewer and fewer people were attending church because they didn't need the rice. They didn't need the food. They didn't need to have their physical needs met. And there was a pejorative term given to these Christians by the missionaries. Does anybody know what it is? Rice Christians. Rice Christians is what they were called. Because they only came to church so they could have their physical needs met. In the latter half of the 20th century, something similar happened in Eastern Europe. As Pope John Paul II proclaimed the need for communism to decrease and the need for freedom to rise, the priests in the Catholic Church, especially the Catholic Church, began to preach justice and peace and liberation. And the leaders of the revolutionaries decided that they should join forces with the church. And so they became part of the church, were baptized and confirmed, and began to work with the priests in order to overturn communism and to take the boot off of their neck. Eventually, under George Herbert Walker Bush, the wall came down, and freedom began to move across Eastern Europe. What do you think happened to church attendance? Yes, the same thing. It began to dwindle because the church no longer had the same goals. The people who were in the pews had fought for one particular thing. They had gotten it, and they no longer needed the safety of the church. Their physical needs had been met. Their social needs were beginning to be met, and there was no longer a need for the institutional church. We hear the same thing today in the gospel. The people who followed Jesus wanted to be fed. They liked the miracle stuff. They liked the signs. They wanted to be fed. They wanted this bread always. We still have rice Christians in the church. We do. There are people, and you can ask Janice, who knock on the door every day, who want to be fed, to be clothed, to be housed, and never darken the inside of the sanctuary. And we have members of the congregation who, at one time or another, I have thought personally, they only came here because of the donuts. I'm serious. If you're hungry and there are free donuts on Sunday morning, where do you go? The church is full of nice people. They're not going to say, Janice, you can't have donut. They may tell me, that's Grace Waddell's donut, but they won't tell anybody else. But there are times when I have seriously thought the only time some people come to church is when they want something. When they want to be fed and have their physical needs met. And it used to anger me. It used to really anger me. You know, Gary Haynes. We all know Gary. Gary is lying in critical condition right now over Franklin Square. He's been deprived of oxygen to his brain. We do not know whether he will live or die. For 12 years, he has been here. We have given him clothing and food and shelter. And at times, I have to be honest with you, I thought that was the only reason he ever came. A few months ago, we got a phone bill. And I looked at it, and there was a phone call to New Jersey. And there's only one person I know who's got relatives in New Jersey that they can call in from the church at 10 o'clock in the morning. Because Gary comes at 8 o'clock. And yes, he had called and spoken to his brother. This week, while he lay near death, his brother from New Jersey and his brother from Pennsylvania were gathered around his bedside along with his 3 children and his wife. And his older brother said to me, "Do you have any idea how much you and Holy Trinity have changed his life?" I said, "No." I thought he just came for the free donuts and a place to get clean. And he said, "No. Whenever he calls, he talks about his church family. He talks about Chris Kennard." They didn't know your last name. He talks about Chris and Janice. And who is this Dan who gave him so much trouble that he loves so much? And as they began to explain the importance of this congregation to me, through the eyes of one who at times I had thought had been a Rice Christian, I felt so guilty. Because, you know, there are times when all of us have just wanted to put our foot right up Gary's butt and send him marching. But somehow, he found God here in this place because of you. Because of you. He found a place where he was accepted, loved, held to standards of behavior, and gave whatever he could. Because he found the bread that feeds his soul here. He's not really a Rice Christian, and I was surprised. You know, in the letter to the Ephesians, Paul writes about building up the body of Christ so that we can all be united, using our separate gifts, our several gifts. And the word building up is not really the proper Greek translation. It's really about aligning. It's like having a broken bone and having it set so that it is aligned. We are here because we know that when we get out of alignment, there are others who can help us set our goals and set our eyes on Christ. That when we get too full of ourselves, including myself, there is something that can bring us back into alignment so that we may follow Christ. Sometimes I think I'm a Rice Christian because I know what I want to get out of church, and I know what I want to put into it, and I know what I want to get out of it, like a little vending machine where you put the money in and you pull the lever, and I know that's what I want to get. But there are times when God surprises me, like manna from heaven. There are times when quail appear in a cloud and feed my soul. There are times when I am so broken and out of alignment. There is only one thing that can satisfy me, and that is the bread of heaven. there are people that come to churches all over this country for many reasons, whether it's to join the choir, or to have donuts, or to do outreach, or to do this, or to do that. But the reason we come to church is because Christ is present here. That we need to feel the full presence and unity of God. We come here because we know that in our brokenness we can be set right. We come here because we know that we do not always measure up to what we should be. But we come here because there are another 79 people in the pew that can align us right with